Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about fingerpicking accompaniment patterns. Fingerpicking accompaniment patterns. I think it's the first time I've been talking today. And welcome all of you who are here live, and welcome to those who are watching this later on the replay. Oh, Alexa, stop. It's telling me to go live. Alexa. So if you haven't already, feel free to download the cheat sheet that I've created. It's something extra.
I found on the web. According to mob.com, when I downloaded
Alexa's talking. Stop.
Here's something I found
Alexa,
on the
stop. Sorry about that. She has a bit of a mind of her own. Where were we? Oh, I want to start off with some basic tips for finger picking. And hi, David. Hi, Antonio from the UK. Tomas from Scotland. Wow. And David's from San Diego, California. My daughter's over there in San Diego. Hopefully it's a bit on the warmer side today. I'm going to start off with some basic tips. Now, and then I'm going to go into 10 different patterns that I consider kind of the essential basic patterns that many of the other patterns build off of. And there's two reasons why I think it's really important to learn and to really be able to play these basic patterns. First of all, I know when I first started, my tendency was to kind of gauge how well I was doing by how many patterns I knew. Now, looking back, I realized how that wasn't the best way to go about things. No matter how many patterns you can play, if you play them stiff or if you play them so that the tone doesn't sound right, none of it ever quite sounds good. And it makes it hard, even when you learn new patterns, to break habits that you've created. It's better to learn a few patterns, maybe a handful or as much as 10, and really work them so that your hands relax. You play them with a good sound, that you can play them at an even tempo. And then when you add on patterns, this is the second most important thing, you're using those habits that you've created with a new pattern so that they sound good from the get-go, and it makes them much easier. So with that in mind, these 10 patterns I consider a good basic foundation. And you don't have to learn all 10, by the way. You can pick 3, 4 of these patterns and really work them to where they're smooth and then add on little by little. Some, of course, are more difficult than others. I'm going to start with a very basic. Now, first tips for practicing. And I'm going to go to my guitar here. When you're playing fingerstyle guitar, any fingerstyle guitar, but particularly finger picking, you want to make sure that your hand stays close to the strings. When I first started, I know what I would tend to do is kind of grasp at the strings, pluck at them like this. And even that little bit of distance that you have to close up each time actually holds you back. And of course, the faster you play, the more that becomes obvious. But when you're playing slowly, try to keep your hand so that it's not moving. So this is the idea. You can see how my hand's not bouncing up and down. And what's happening, let me turn a little bit this way. Yeah, that's good. You can see my guitar a little better. Let me try something here. I'm going to try some technology here, though. I couldn't test this out ahead of time. That's not what I wanted. Now, the other thing is try to plant your fingers ahead of time. Now, this is kind of an exaggeration. You're not really putting your fingers there waiting and then plugging. But what I'm doing is I'm starting off with my fingers on each of the strings and then pulling them into my palm. Oh, let me turn this way a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Now you can see. Oh, that's a good view. The thumb goes down, not completely. Sometimes I'll hit the next string. Sometimes I'll just pass it up, but not plucking out. I'm plucking down, and then the fingers are pulling into my palm. And that's why I don't need to pull out my whole hand. The motion is the fingers into the palm. Now, each time I tend to put my fingers back to where they were and then pluck them in. It's a very quick movement. Now, I have nails, and I can get a little brighter sound with that. It's actually a little harder to get used to it. Once you do, it's like anything else, it becomes second nature. And so when I hit the string, I'm hitting the nail and the flesh together. Not necessary. It's just softer without the nails. And even a little bit of nail, if you practice it, you can kind of just touch the nail and get a little bit of that crisper sound. Let me see if I can do it without the nail. I'll do on the middle string. Now with nail. Now that's both. I'm hitting the flesh and then rolling off the nail. The other thing is you want to practice so it's even. And to do that, I would start very slow. And when you're playing faster, that habit of playing evenly will transfer. It'll become kind of set into your motion. Now, with that said, I'm going to start off with the first finger picking pattern, which is a very basic one. If you have the download sheet, there's actually more than the 10 I'm going to talk about today on that sheet. So you're not confused. What I'll do is I'll call it the name that's on the sheet so you can find it. I wish I'd numbered them now. I could say number 1 and number 2, but I didn't. In any case, number 1, which I numbered them on my sheet, it's called the basic 4/4 pattern. So it's going to sound like this. And let's go to my guitar again, right? And 4/4, I would count it like this: 1 and let me see, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it doesn't sound like much slow. A little faster, it sounds more like something you could use in a song. Nice and slow now. I would do it without a chord first. And to make this easier, I'm going to call out the numbers of the strings. We'll start with the 6th string, that's the lowest string, and the highest string is going to be the first string, a high E, low E, high E. So this would be 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's common terminology to call this 6, 3, 2, 1. That's how you kind of tell somebody a finger picking pattern. I'm going to start off with a C chord in my left hand. So this will be 5, the thumb, 3, 2, 1, 5, 3, 2, 1. You'll see this written down, and it comes from tablature. By the way, if you haven't got the download sheet, it was the very first comment. I put a link in the very first comment. So anybody who came later and didn't see that, it's pushed up. Go to the very first comment and you should see it. And by the way, I will, let me talk to you. I am going to record this, and I'm going to put it on the blog post with the link. So if you don't get it now, you'll be able to download the sheet later. So don't worry about that too much. Here we go. Back to my guitar. So 5, 3, 2, 1. Now we can communicate finger picking patterns. 5, 3, 2, 1. The bass note's going to always be with my thumb. And then for most of these patterns, we're going to use the fingers on the right hand is going to be the first finger. The index finger is going to be on the 3rd string. 2nd string is that middle finger. And then I think they call this the ring finger on the 1st string. So 5, 3, 2, 1. So I'm not going to call out the fingering every time. Sometimes I might change up, and then I'll tell you the change. So I like to use a simple chord progression to practice these. Something like this. C. Nice and even. And G. Just to give you a little practice changing the bass note. Bass note on the C is a 5, 3, 2, 1. And on the G is 6. 3, 2, 1. I'm keeping my fingers on the 3, 2, 1 strings. Okay, so the whole pattern will be 5, 3, 2, 1, and again, that's 1 bar, and to G. And you can, of course, repeat. I find find it helpful to practice a pattern sometimes with a metronome, not all the time, but sometimes. Let's go on to the pattern number 2, my pattern number 2. We're going to call this 4/4 alternating bass pattern. So similar, it's going to sound like this. That's the whole progression. I'm using 3 chords, C, G, and the D chord. And I particularly use those because now you get to move your thumb around to 3 different bass notes. The 5 string, the 6 string for the G chord, and the 4 string for the D chord. Now, let me show you that alternating pattern. G, I'm starting with a C chord. So that's just like the pattern, the first pattern we did. Now I alternate with the 3rd finger over to this 6th string, and that gives me a low G note for the bass. I love that bass note, and I think that's a real good technique to develop, because if you ever want to use bass notes for the C chord, you could go up here. That's not very bassy, quite frankly. This is a bass note. Then for the G chord, and we're using the alternate bass note of this 4th string, so the whole thing would be that's 6, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. And for the D, I'm starting on the 4th string. That's 4, 3, 2, 1, and jumping down to the A. Yeah, the open A. That makes a good bass note for the D chord, or an alternate bass note. All together, C to the G, G6 to 4, 4, 5 string, and back to, where did we start? C. Oh, G. We want to end on G. That's the problem. C. Yeah, that sounds right. I was trying to get it in a key that sounded right. It's in the key of G, but we started on C. Okay, here we go again. G, D, and G. Okay, on to pattern number 3. And you'll notice they're starting to get more and more complex. This one is 1 bass note per measure, but we're doing more with the fingers. So here's what it sounds like. And then to G. So we're going up, back down, and up. C. I'll call out the strings. 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. And again, slow. 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. With the G, I just move the thumb down to the 6th string. 6, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now let's go on to the 4th pattern. And again, they're not numbered on the sheet. If you're looking, we're going to call this on the Prairie pattern. Now, this pattern I'm using, went to the key of A to basically try some different bass notes, to get some different bass notes in there. This basic idea is to hit the bass note and then pluck all 3 higher strings together. Bass note for A is the 5th string. For D again is 4th string. For E, we're going to use that open low E. Here's what it sounds like. threw a bass walk in there just for fun. It's really optional. You can experiment with this kind of thing with bass walks and apply those to other finger picking patterns as well. Let me go over the picking pattern a little slower. Start with the A 5th string, 5, and then 3, 2, 1 together. I use the alternate bass note of the low E. Now I go to the D chord, 4th string for the bass note. For E, I use the low E, and I jump up here to the 4th string, and then start A again, low E. Now we start the pattern over. A, low E, bass note, 6th string, 4 to 5 for the bass, 6. Now here's that bass run. 2nd fret on the 6th string, pinky on the 4th fret, open A, and then start over. Low E, 2nd fret, 4th fret, and then open A, starting over. Now let's do this. Cycle. Okay, so those bass walks are something you can experiment with if you like. Now for the 4/4 alternate string pattern. This one I actually use a lot. Listen. Okay, I'm using 2 chords, a D minor chord for this. And this is called an A add 9. That's the most common way. By the way, if you see it spelled A add 2, it's the exact same thing. That's 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. 2nd finger, it's like a C chord, only without the 1st finger and the pinky down on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. The high E is part of the chord also. And again, I'm going 4, 3, 2, back to 3, then 3rd finger hits the 1, then back to 3, 2, 3. I'll do that again, just the D minor chord. 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3. Same pattern when I move over to that C chord. Leave the pinky right where it is. That's 5, 4, 3. Is that 4? No. 3, 2. Ha! There we go. 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3. And one more time, same thing. 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3. Back to D minor. To C add 2. A little faster. Okay, now I'm going to hit pattern number 6. Before I do that, I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit because it'll make more sense. You'll see what I mean. I'm going to go into 3/4 patterns. With this, 4/4 patterns means there's 4 pulses per measure. 3/4 pattern means there's 3 pulses. So it'd be the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3/4 patterns are more like what you hear in a polka, that when you're playing fast like that. A waltz is 3/4 pattern. In this case, you can use pretty much all the same patterns in 4/4, only you chop off one beat. So in the case of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You just go 1, 2, 3. No, 1, 2, that doesn't work. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and here we go. Here's 2 patterns in 3/4 that we'll use. 1 and 2 and 3 and I'm hitting 2 notes with my second and third finger on the right hand. That's the second string and the first string. And again, I'm putting my fingers right where I always put them, on the first 3 strings. That's 3 beats. 1 and 2 and 3 and to the G chord. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Now, here's the second pattern. I call this a 3/4 arpeggio pattern. And this is what I was trying to do, but I realize now it doesn't quite work to chop off a 4/4 pattern, because you end up with just a bass note. So 1 and 2 and 3 and it works better to come back and then start the bass note on 1 again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So again, you plant your fingers. This is a good one to practice. Maybe one of the, if you're just going to learn a few patterns to start, this is probably one of the first ones to learn. Bass, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's coming back. It's like the 4/4 pattern. It sounds like this. And the 4/4 has one more beat added to it. For 3/4, it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4/4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and so you got that extra 2 notes going up. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now I'm deliberately using the C to G like we did in the first 3/4 pattern, because you can blend them together. And as a matter of fact, I usually don't stick with just one exact pattern in a song. For example, this might sound like this. And so on. You can see I kind of blended and added a little extra to those 2 patterns. Now with that, I'm going to go back to the 4/4 beat, but we're going to kind of up the ante a little bit. And we're going to start this whole kind of pop fingerpicking style that is started off what I would call Travis picking. I'm going to start off with what I call the boxer inspired pattern. That's because I remember this as the pattern that Simon and Garfunkel used in the song The Boxer. I'm sure there's a better name for that, but that's what I'm going with for now. Let's go on with the boxer inspired pattern. And we'll use a C chord. It sounds like this. And for numbers, that's 5, 2, 3. I'm sorry. 5, 2, 4, 3. 2, 4, 3. And if you were to do the G, you just move the bass note down. So a good way to practice is start with one chord. And again, I would start, if you're new to fingerpicking, one of the simpler patterns that just go straight up or straight up and down, because it's hard to remember the numbers and make a good sound all at one time. What you want to do is kind of isolate, make it simple, get the sound good, and then apply that to a more complex pattern. A little faster. Now it's starting to sound like something. Of course, it doesn't sound right when you're going slow. Now, here's where you'll recognize it more if you're familiar with Simon and Garfunkel. By the way, that was the only chord in there that might be new to most people is that it's actually F/C, meaning I made an F chord, but I don't need this first string, so I didn't try it. And I put a C note in the bass, as opposed to like an F note. That made it so I didn't have to play a bar chord. How about that? Okay, now we're going to take it up another notch. I want to do what we'll call basic Travis picking. Where did I put that? Basic Travis picking is where we're going to introduce the pinch. Pinch. 2 notes at once with a thumb, and I'm using my middle finger. We'll call that. Oh, maybe call that, yeah, middle finger on the right hand. Pinch. So I'm pinching 5 and 2. Thumb goes to 3. No, that's 4. Let's try that again. 5 and 2. 4, 3. Back to 5. 2. And to 3. No, that's 4 again. Let's try it again. Pinch 4, 2, 5, 2, 4. Pinch 4, 3, 5, 2, 4. Yeah. Go. Let's just this way. For me, it's here. I'll close my eyes. There we go. Works better. If you've been finger picking a little bit and you don't know this yet, very important pattern to learn. Used in lots of songs with variations. With a G bass note, I just move the thumb to the G. Okay, so keep in mind, if you're looking at the sheet, I didn't do these in order. That's why I'm calling them out by name. This is the basic Travis picking pattern. And the final pattern for today, I'm going to call it, it's a basic Travis picking pattern with some additions. And on the sheet, I call it Dust in the Wind inspired pattern because that's where I first heard it. Yes, I'm brought up in the era of classic rock. Dust in the Wind pattern. Listen. Basically the same as Travis, but I've added the third finger. Slow. Thumb pinching. Thumb goes to 4. High E, the first string. Now, I like this with A minor, same fingering. This is one way to practice it. First finger off. Whoops, let me do it slow. Pinky down on the third fret of the second string. Back to A minor. First finger off. Pinky down. Most people recognize that as the intro to Dust in the Wind. So I did something a little different on the sheet, and I should play that just so you're. That's the progression I use. C. I'll call this a G with a B in the bass. G6. So I've done C, move my second finger over the 5th string, 2nd fret, pinky down on the 3rd fret, first finger to stay off of that. Exact same pattern in the right hand. C, G6, A minor. Again, that comes from Dust in the Wind. I like to use patterns sometimes that are recognizable. That makes it a little easier for people to hear if it sounds right. Okay, so those are the 10 patterns. Again, if you haven't downloaded the sheet, I did put the link in the very first comment. Actually, this, if you can't get it there, don't worry. I'm going to put this on a blog post with the link. Matter of fact, it is on a blog post with the link right now. So when this is done, you'll see a full recording as well as the link. So if you go to that blog post, if for some reason you can't get that link, it's I'll be sending an email out on Tuesday morning, which will have that link in it, so you can download the sheet then. Are there any questions specific to the fingerpicking patterns? I don't see any questions, and a lot of comments. Hi, everybody. Hi from France. Hola, Antonio, Carmen. Good. So we're going to close up for today. Again, I'll be sending an email out next week with a link to the recording and the download sheet. Thanks for joining me today. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to leave comments either on YouTube or on my blog. And I always respond usually to the comments within a few days. Thanks again and take care.